Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a look at a whole stack of research focused on a phase of life that I think a lot of women run into, maybe without even realizing what's happening.
Exactly.
We're talking about those really subtle early signs of hormonal shifts that can start creeping in as early as your mid-30s.
And it's the story we hear all the time. I just feel off, but my doctor says my labs are normal, so I guess I'm just stressed.
Right.
So our mission today is to, cut through that noise. We want to give you a real guide to recognizing symptoms that are so often just dismissed as, oh, you're just getting older or you're tired.
And actually link them back to the hormones that are driving them.
Precisely. Because hormones aren't just one little thing. They're the core operating system for your energy, your mood, your metabolism, sleep.
Even how clearly you can think.
Everything. And when those signals start to change, the whole system feels it. This isn't just about feeling better day to day. It's about potentially preventing years of feeling just off.
Okay, so let's just dive right in there. Let's talk about what you're calling the misdiagnosis problem. Why is it that when a woman in her, say, late 30s starts feeling that constant fatigue or her PMS gets way worse?
Yeah.
Why is the first thought from her, and maybe even her doctor, just stress?
Because the symptoms look identical. I mean, think about it. What does chronic stress feel like? You have no energy, you're not sleeping well, you have a really short fuse.
Sounds familiar.
Well, early hormonal shifts, especially with estrogen fluctuating and cortisol rising because of it, they create that exact biochemical state. Your body is under an internal hormonal stress, but it feels exactly like external life stress.
That makes so much sense. You just, you grab another coffee, you decide not to go out that night, and you tell yourself, I'm just really busy right now.
Yeah.
But let's zoom in on that fatigue. It's not just, I'm a bit tired. It's that deep, heavy feeling. Like you wake up and your battery just never charged past 50%.
That specific, unrelenting exhaustion is often the first big clue. And there are a few things going on here. First, low estrogen.
Okay.
Estrogen helps regulate serotonin, which is a key neurotransmitter for mood, but also for sleep. When estrogen dips, so does serotonin, and that messes with the quality of your sleep.
So it's not about the hours you're in bed.
Not at all. You can get your 8 hours, but they're not effective. They're not restorative. The second driver is low progesterone.
A calming one, right?
The great calming hormone, yeah. It helps you fall asleep and stay asleep. Progesterone is often the very first hormone to decline as perimenopause starts, so you suddenly find it harder to relax and settle down at night.
And what about cortisol? You mentioned that before. How does that play into this?
Well, cortisol is supposed to be high in the morning to wake you up and low at night so you can sleep. But when the system is out of balance from life stress or these hormonal changes, that pattern can flip.
So you get high cortisol at night.
Exactly. It keeps your brain on high alert. It's that classic wired but tired feeling. And of course, we can't forget the thyroid. If that's underactive, your whole metabolism slows down, and that causes a sluggishness that no amount of coffee is going to fix.
Okay, let's move from the body to the brain. This is where the research got, I think, really surprising for me, the idea of new onset anxiety or just mood swings that feel completely out of character, especially after 35.
This is a huge one. It's a classic case of hormonal changes presenting as, well, what feels like a psychological problem. Your hormones are key regulators for your brain's most important chemicals.
Like serotonin and dopamine.
Serotonin, dopamine, and especially GABA. When estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating, those neurotransmitters are on a total roller coaster.
Can you break down that mechanism? Specifically, what happens with GABA when progesterone starts to drop?
So GABA is your brain's main calming neurotransmitter. Think of it like the brakes for your nervous system. Progesterone basically helps GABA do its job. It promotes its function.
So progesterone is kind of like a natural Valium.
You got it. So when progesterone drops, your natural calming system is it's compromised. And the symptoms are really specific. Anxiety that comes out of nowhere, feeling totally overwhelmed by small things.
That emotional sensitivity.
Extreme emotional sensitivity. And then there's the one that really shocks people. These episodes of intense irritability or even rage that is so characteristic of a perimenopausal imbalance.
So if you find yourself crying over a commercial or just feeling this constant internal alarm bell ringing, it's not that you suddenly developed an anxiety disorder.
It's that your brain is reacting to the absence of its own calming chemicals. It's a chemical issue, not a character flaw. That wired but tired feeling is your brain telling you it can't regulate itself anymore.
Let's talk about maybe the most obvious early warning system, the one that's literally mapped out for us every month, the menstrual cycle. What should we be looking for there?
Just look at your calendar and your flow. The biggest sign is your cycle getting shorter. So if you've always been reliable 28 days and suddenly you're at 24 or 26, that's a huge
Or
tell.
longer, too, right?
Or longer, yeah. Suddenly stretching out past 31 days is another red flag.
But why shorter first? That seems a bit counterintuitive.
It comes back to progesterone again. In those early years of perimenopause, maybe 5 to 10 years before actual menopause, progesterone is the first to go.
And it's needed to maintain the cycle length.
Exactly. It maintains the uterine lining and spaces things out. When it drops, the cycles compress. And that often leads to heavier periods, more painful periods, or even spotting a few days before your period actually starts.
Okay, and let's go back to sleep for a second, because a lot of the sources say that new sleep problems are often the very first thing people really notice.
They are. We talked about GABA, but the other piece is night sweats, even really mild ones.
Which feels like a classic menopause symptom, but you're saying it starts much earlier.
Years earlier. That's estrogen instability. Estrogen helps regulate your body's thermostat, which is in the hypothalamus. When estrogen is swinging wildly, the hypothalamus gets confused.
And triggers a hot flash.
Or a night sweat while you're sleeping, and that waking up at 3 a.m. wide awake.
Yeah, what is that?
That's that cortisol-progesterone double whammy we talked about. Low progesterone means you're not deeply asleep, and then your cortisol starts to surge way too early, jolting you awake.
Now, for the one that is probably the most frustrating for a lot of people, gaining weight around your middle, even when your diet and exercise haven't changed at all.
Oh, this is a big one. And it's a really complex metabolic shift. First, as estrogen declines, your body literally changes where it prefers to store fat.
From hips and thighs to
To the abdomen, to that visceral fat area. So the fat cells themselves are just responding to a different chemical signal.
And there's an insulin connection too, isn't there?
There is. Insulin resistance tends to increase after 40, which makes it harder for your body to process carbs and sugar, leading to more fat storage. And then you add high cortisol into the mix.
Which loves to store fat around the midsection.
Guaranteed. And this isn't just about how your genes fit. That abdominal or visceral fat is metabolically active. It's strongly linked to higher inflammation and, really critically, to increased cardiovascular risk.
That's a huge point. This is a health indicator, not just a comfort issue.
A major one.
Let's get into some of the more subtle clues, the ones that don't seem like they'd be related to hormones at all. Things like brain fog, that can be terrifying.
It's one of the most frightening symptoms, I think, because it feels like you're losing your mind. You lose your train of thought mid-sentence, you can't find a word you know.
Forgetting names, walking into a room and having no idea why.
Exactly, that drop in executive function. And the reason is that estrogen is profoundly neuroprotective. It supports neurotransmitter activity, it supports blood flow in the brain, it helps brain cells communicate.
So when it fluctuates, the brain is essentially running on low power.
That's a great way to put it. It's trying to run complex software on an underpowered machine. But the good news is cognitive function really responds well when you rebalance the hormones.
Okay, and what about the things you see in the mirror? Changes in your hair, your skin?
These are the visual signs. Low estrogen means less collagen, so your skin gets drier, less plump. You might see your hair starting to thin, especially at the crown.
But what about something like adult acne? Suddenly getting breakouts on your chin.
Right, that can be different. That hormonal acne pattern along the jawline and chin that often points to an imbalance with testosterone, whereas things like brittle nails and just diffuse hair shedding all over,
Yeah.
that often points toward the thyroid.
Let's touch on two more that are important but often not discussed. Low libido.
It's the elephant in the room, and it is entirely hormonal. It's a decline in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. They all play a role. But the physical side is huge, too.
You mean vaginal dryness?
Yes. Lower estrogen can cause dryness and discomfort, which then obviously impacts desire. It becomes a physical issue on top of the biochemical one.
And the gut. Why do so many women suddenly develop bloating or IBS symptoms during this time?
Because your entire digestive tract is lined with estrogen and progesterone receptors. So when your hormones fluctuate, your gut becomes hypersensitive to stress, to certain foods, you name it.
So new bloating or constipation could be a direct hormonal signal.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. For someone listening who is nodding along thinking, yes, that's me and that's me, what is the immediate actionable advice?
The first step is just that recognition. If you're identifying with two, three, or more of these symptoms happening at the same time, the fatigue, the anxiety, the cycle changes, then it's almost certain that hormones are a major factor.
So step one is to start gathering your own data.
Yes. Start tracking everything. Right now, your symptoms, how severe they are, and this is critical, where they fall in your menstrual cycle. Do that for at least 4 to 6 weeks.
And then step two is the lab work. You said general labs often miss this. So what specifically should someone ask for?
You have to be specific. You need estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, and a full thyroid panel, not just TSH. But crucially, you also need to ask for FSH and LH.
Okay, why are FSH and LH so important?
FSH is follicle-stimulating hormone. When your estrogen is low, your brain tells the pituitary gland to pump out more FSH to try and get your ovaries to respond. A high fluctuating FSH level is the clearest lab marker we have that you're in the perimenopausal transition.
That is such a key piece of information for advocating for yourself. And the final steps are lifestyle and treatment.
They're foundational. Look at your sleep, your nutrition, alcohol, and especially stress. Just getting cortisol under control can make a massive difference. Then you find a clinician who understands hormones to talk about options, whether that's supplements or, if it's right for you, hormone therapy.
It sounds like early action here really changes the experience from feeling lost to feeling empowered.
It absolutely does. It stops the cycle of frustration.
This has been such a helpful deep dive. I think the main takeaway for me is that these hormonal shifts are, they're universal. But the earliest signs are so subtle, the fatigue, the anxiety, the body changes.
But by paying attention to those specific cues, you gain so much control over your health.
Absolutely.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. We talked about the strong link between declining estrogen, that shift to abdominal fat, and a higher risk for cardiovascular disease long term. So recognizing these early signs isn't just about feeling better today. It's not just about comfort or fixing brain fog. It's truly a critical part of proactive preventative health. So ask yourself, of all the things we've talked about, what's the one symptom you're now motivated to start tracking today? Because that commitment is your real next step.